Welcome back to Business is Fucking Hard. Today I'm talking to Ron Partlow, a guy who's lived multiple business lives and figured out how to stay relevant, grounded, and thriving across all of them. He's the co-founder of West Coast Iron, one of the Lower Mainland's most respected independent gyms. Built with 5 guys, 50 grand each, and a whole lot of sweat equity. No outside investors, no shortcuts, just belief in the product and the community. Ron is a business builder, a brand guy, a podcaster, and one of those rare people who actually gets what it takes to create something that lasts. Not because it's easy, but because he never stops showing up. Let's get into it.
Hi there, I'm Trevor, and this is Business is Fucking Hard, the podcast where business owners pull back the curtain and talk about the realities of owning a business. We'll hear their stories, learn some lessons, and have some fun along the way. Thanks for joining us.
Ron Partlow, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, buddy. It's always good to see you.
It is good to see you too. There's been a few folks that I have had on from what feels like a previous life, and it always starts with we should see each other more. We got to get together, or those kinds of things. And
yeah.
Our world is always full of stuff like that. But just for the listener, you're in my probably started crossing, I'm going to say in 2010, probably 15 years ago ish.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit earlier, but yeah. In the bodybuilding world.
What's that?
The bodybuilding world.
That's right. I think this is going to be the first episode that gives a little bit of different context into my life. Because you and I were close on the bodybuilding side, not necessarily on the business side.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to have this conversation around that world a little bit, but certainly your more recent ventures and kind of the impacts of having a business, starting and growing a business in the Lower Mainland. So we'll get into all of that. But as I do with everyone, I give you the first softball question. What was your introduction to business? And
well, I guess my introduction to business would have been in like 1999. I was a 23-year-old bodybuilder, and I had won the Albertas. So I had gone to the Alberta Bodybuilding Championships, my second attempt, and I had won the overall. And I had a guy approach me a few months after the show, and he said, "Hey, would you help me get ready for a bodybuilding contest?" And I was like, and this was a different era. There were really only like a couple of top pro coaches, but like the whole coaching industry thing was not really a thing.
Right.
Bodybuilders were all just helping each other.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, "Hey, what did you do?" And reading magazines. There was no like this current thing for those of you in the know. There's like this, like everyone has a coach for every single thing now. That was not how it was. So when he approached me and he asked me to help him, I'm like, okay, like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't even I was like, and he's like, well, like, if I pay you like some money, would you like do my diet for me? And I was like, oh yeah. Okay.
What to eat and when?
I was like, okay, cause I had someone help me for my show. And I was like, I'll do what that person did. They helped me, and I'll help this guy. And he paid me. I think he paid me like $250 to help him for like 3 months.
Right.
But it was just bodybuilder to bodybuilder, like meatheads at the gym. Like, hey, I think you need to cut your carbs. I think you need to do a bit more cardio. Oh, you look really good. Don't change anything, like that sort of stuff. And then he won his show. So then 3 more guys from the gym said, "Hey, Ron, that guy looked really good at his show. Like, would you help me for my show?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was bouncing at the bar. Like, so this extra, all of a sudden, I had 3 guys paying me a few $100. And, and then this is back in another time when rent was, $300 a month. So you're pulling in an extra $500 here and there. It's like,
yep,
awesome.
Goes along.
And all of a sudden I was like, oh, like, I'm getting paid to help guys. And I remember I even got these little business cards made because I thought, do I need business cards now?
It's amazing.
And then a couple of years later, I'd helped like 10 or 12 people by that point. And I had guys doing every show, the Northern Albertas, the Southern Albertas, the provincials, and there was no online coaching really. It was like the guys that lived in your area. And or maybe a guy from Calgary would hire me and he'd drive up every 3 weeks to see me in Edmonton and I could have a look at him, like that type of thing. And I remember I was bartending by this point at one bar, and one of the guys who played in one of the cover bands was like a website designer. And he's like, "You need a website." I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, to help you get more sponsors, you should be online. All these other guys are online." And we were all on the message boards back then, and some of the pros had websites, and I wasn't a pro yet. And I was like, "Oh," but he made me a website. And I just by accident, I became a bodybuilding coach. And, that I guess would be my introduction to entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah.
Is just sort of accidentally started getting paid by people to help them not make mistakes or try to avoid bad calls or what, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And use my experience, and it just kind of evolved into like, I've been coaching people now for, 30 years, 25 years or whatever, and, I've coached people all the way to the Olympia level, and I've helped a whole bunch of people now. Like, I don't keep track. I know some coaches have their little ticker on their Instagram, 32 pro cards and all that. I don't really know. I forget how many pro cards I've helped people win now, but it's been a lot of fun. And that was like, I guess, the first business I accidentally started.
And while you were doing that, did it ever feel like you were like, did you look at it from a business perspective? Like you get the website, now you're kind of doing a little bit more of a marketing perspective, but did you consider yourself a business owner, or were you still a bartender that was coaching?
Yeah, I was terrible at being a business person.
Yeah.
In like that way.
Right.
And like I saw other people coming out with names for their coaching companies, top shelf coaching or whatever. And I was kind of like, I'm just me.
Person was not successful.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm just me. I'm just my name. I'm not going to have like a company name. I'm just going to be me. People want to contact Ron.
Yeah.
To help them. That's me. I just was always that type of guy. And I stuck to my guns on that. And yeah, I mean, I never tried to like, I didn't do like online advertising. I didn't like, you know what I mean? I was like bad at that type of thing. I sort of took pride in being word of mouth and just helping the guys that really knew me. And, I probably could have made way more money if I would have actually been a good business person at that point. I learned a lot, and I kind of did it my way, and it led to, later things that obviously turned out well for me. So I'm totally fine with it,
Yeah. And before we get there, I don't want to go too far off of your journey.
Yeah.
But I want to just chat a little bit about kind of the business environment around bodybuilding itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you were a bodybuilder for 25 plus years, very competitive. You achieved the ultimate goal of the pro card towards the end of your career. But during that time, there were sponsorships, there were engagement pieces, there was opportunity for you to maybe make some cash. But again, like kind of back to that question, did you ever, during the bodybuilding portion, consider yourself to be in a business of bodybuilding? Like, was it intentional ever about, if I do these things, then this could actually be kind of an ongoing revenue generator for me?
That came much later.
Okay.
That came much later. And I think part of that was just like the evolution of the internet and everything that I saw. I was one of those transitional bodybuilders that, I started bodybuilding pre-internet. So my entire career spanned the development of, Facebook. I started training in 1990. Facebook hits in 2007 when I'm already a national champion.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's this? And people didn't really catch on that it would be a tool.
Right.
Like, we just thought it was like to try to like hook up with your high school friends.
Yeah.
Like, see what everybody's doing,
Yeah.
Putting your status there, off to the gym.
Yeah.
And Yeah. And YouTube came along in 05, but bodybuilding world didn't really, we started seeing the odd bodybuilder with a channel in 07. And of course we're thinking, oh yeah, this is fun and games, right? We're not thinking that the guys that started their channels in 2006 would wind up pulling in $100,000 a month by 2020.
Yeah.
Like that just wasn't, none of us were thinking that way. And some guys were really early to the curve on that sort of stuff. And then I vividly remember, and I know most of your viewers won't know who Rich Piana is, but he was like a phenomenon in the sport, in the industry. He was kind of a turning point in the world of marketing and how bodybuilding operated. And I remember in early 2012, I was with him at an expo because we were both sponsored by Mutant.
Yep.
And he said, "Give me your phone." And I was like, okay. I gave him my phone and he started doing something on my phone. He goes, "I'm downloading an app for you. It's going to change your entire life." I remember him saying that. And I go, "Oh." And he's like, "It's going to change everybody's life. People are sleeping. They're asleep." I remember he was just talking to me like that. I was like, "Oh, okay. What's Rich up to?" And he goes, "This app is going to completely destroy everything else. It's going to be the ultimate fitness industry app." And he goes, "It's called Instagram. You need to get on it. Start an account right now." And he like literally handed me my phone with the account page opened. And he's like, "What's your name on there?" And I already had a handle from the message boards in my head. It was Rep 300 back in the day. And I go, "Well, I'll just use Rep 300. And he goes, Perfect. Do it." And I started an account. And he goes, "Now post a picture today." And I'll never forget that moment. And so like, of course, Instagram, I mean, the fitness industry embraced Instagram, I think, more than any other industry.
I would.
Like we were the earliest, most aggressive adopters of Instagram because it was all about pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
And what do bodybuilders want to put up?
Yeah.
There's a picture of me squatting 500. Here's a picture of me looking great. Here's a picture of my last show. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, tagging people. And it just evolved into this crazy, unbelievable. And that's when it really hit. I think it hit me and everyone like, oh, and I remember Rich telling me, he's like, "This is all that matters. This is all that matters is your phone. You don't need a job. You don't need a boss. You don't need anything. This is it. There's going to come a day when if you can't make $100,000 a year with a smartphone, you're literally an idiot." And I remember him just being like, he talked like that. He was so ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
The world as it is today.
Yeah.
Never forget it.
I want to just give a little bit of context to some of that. And then we'll unpack kind of that social media piece in a second. But I remember that show. That was the Olympia. You and Rich were there. I was there just as
well. It was actually the Arnold Classic in 2012.
In 2012. Okay, yeah. So I met you guys just after that. Then.
Yeah, just after that. Yeah.
I got signed as well by Mutant in 2012.
And you came to the Olympia later that year.
Yeah, and I saw that was where I first met Rich. But just for the listeners, I've also had on the podcast Jim McMahon, who's the owner of Fit Foods, which is the parent company of Mutant, which is the supplement, the supplement company that you're talking about.
You bet.
I'm sure that will weave itself into our conversation.
Yeah. Jim's been very good to me. I've been on with Jim now for 14 years. He's been amazing.
Yeah. But that so tying back to kind of Rich Piana, who you just talked about, and kind of that embrace of Instagram when it kind of hit the market, that Mutant really led some of that, and you were at the forefront with them on leveraging some of those platforms, signing Rich to kind of be that real that social media presence and face,
right?
Like you said. Rich changed that game, but Mutant was really a part of that too, to help leverage that. And you and I got to be kind of in the wake of some of that.
Yeah, we got to kind of surf behind those. Yeah, like Rich's first round of videos there that Ryan had made that went viral on YouTube, that really pulled the company up into the limelight and made us an international brand to a large extent. We were a Canadian brand with a few international distributors, and after that, basically that 2 years with Rich, we were in like over 100 countries. And And, we wound up traveling the world. You and I went to Germany for FIBO together and all those expos. And yeah, it really did change things. And just being a little bit earlier on the YouTubes and the Instagram compared to some of the other companies that were dragging their feet. There were companies that had like the top guys in the world.
That's right.
Like I remember Muscle Tech had Phil Heath, and I would go to the YouTube channel and look at the Phil Heath videos, and they had like 2,000 views. And I was like, how can this be? He's the best. But it's because they weren't using their channel properly.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
weren't advertising it. They weren't linking to it. They weren't pushing it out. They weren't, putting ads on it. And then you'd go to our channel, and like Rich's videos had 1 million views each.
Yeah.
And it was because, it was just funny to see those early days. And that really did, that woke everybody up to this new reality.
Yeah. And I think that was some of the mentality around Mutant. And like, you were so influential in those conversations early days. Like we're kind of deviating from your business path. We'll get
right.
Back to that. But you were influencing in business, right? Like you were like, I'm trying to tie this to like, you didn't own the business, but this is your exposure to entrepreneurialism, to you having a different way of thinking, and you looking at what are the business opportunities around some of this identity and leveraging personalities. And Mutant was really, we're not going to spend the multi 6-figure contracts on big names. We're going to use smaller names that people can relate to, or smaller names like me who people can't relate to.
No, but yeah, you had your fans though, man. You had people that loved you because they were like, I'm a dad like Trevor. Bodybuilding's my hobby. You were already a businessman, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And it was, so I call it the Powell and Peralta model.
Okay, explain.
So if you go back to the early skateboard days in the 80s, Powell and Peralta, if you know about the early skateboard company days, they had this ragtag team of kids. One of them was Tony Hawk. He was only 14 years old at the time, right? They had Steve Calabero, and they had Lance Mountain, and they had all these early skaters. And they thought, instead of trying to sell skateboards, we're going to sell these kids' personalities. Yeah, so the early Powell and Peralta, they called them the Bones Brigade. So the Bones Brigade was this team of kids that traveled around in a van, and they went and did skate demos and skated with the local kids and did the contests and stuff. And they said, instead of trying to sell skateboards like everyone else, we're going to sell these kids' personalities. So like their ads were different. Their ads weren't the board. Their ads were the kid.
Yeah.
Like be Lance Mountain just standing on a mountain. And Tony Hawk standing in front of a burning car. And, like that sort of thing. And it wasn't just about the board. They were selling the kid's personality, the kid's uniqueness. They built a team out of these unique characters that were all different from one another. And they did it with almost no money. And then they traveled around in a van, right? And they built, at the time, the biggest skateboard company. Powell and Peralta was number one. Like everyone wanted a Tony Hawk board. Everyone wanted, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what we did with Mutant. Reminds me when I went and watched the Bones Brigade documentary like 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, this is like what we did kind of. We had a bunch of like Canadian level guys and Rich, who was retired.
That's right.
And we didn't even have any pros on the team at the time. And we were able to like go to expos and have lineups and have people wanting to meet us. And it was just
I like that comparison. And I think it goes back to, like we were saying earlier, there's that relatability to it, right? Like when you're talking about an amateur, somebody who's still, like I was in the trenches, just like the guy who wants to go to the gym. And like you said, a kid, a business, we did some profiles on the Mutant page around my business days. Like I was out talking to clients and like there was some of that day in the life of kind of piece. And you get like, you can aspire and be, kind of have that piece around the notoriety of Mr. Olympia and the celebrity of that. But we were kind of driving towards like, we're just in this with you guys. And
we're one of you. We just happen to be better at actually being bodybuilders, but we're not any better at bodybuilding. Like we're eating the same meals as you. You know what I mean? Like the only thing that separated you from a lot of guys was that you're Trevor Coote and you had the genetics to be a 300-pound monster for a while there. And like the other guys were training the same, but you just did it and you made it work for you. And they just, that's why people related to you. And that same with me, you know? So but that all to help you tie this to my current business, which is the gym. That's why, like, when we started West Coast Iron in 2017, you know, there was 5 of us when we opened the gym. And, you know, the other guys brought a lot of experience with, they had all owned supplement stores. So they had business and like, they had experience, like they'd looked at leases. You know, I didn't know any of that stuff. I'd never looked at a lease. I'd never had a room painted. I'd never had a contractor come. I'd never had an inspection. I'd never applied for a permit. I'd never done any of that stuff. Right. Yeah. So these guys had all done that crap, dealt with the city and blah, 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 blah. But I brought a lot of marketing experience because I'd been at Mutant for so long. And I'd actually worked in the company for 5 years too. So I said, okay, we don't need to spend $1 on advertising. We have this phone in our hand, back to the phone. And we hammered Instagram. And we told our story while we did it. Like, hey guys, we're in the gym. The painters are up on the scaffold painting the walls. We're hoping to have this painted by the end of the week. Like sharing that. Hey guys, we got a new piece of equipment coming in. We're just unloading it off the truck ourselves. We're not hiring people to do it. Like, we're here pulling it off the truck. You know, we got to wheel it across the floor and then unload it. It weighs 800 pounds. And, you know, and we got the wives painting the shelves for the pro shop. And we were doing that stuff on the story and on the Instagram. And again, it's like that relatable grassroots. Like, we're not any different than you. We're just doing it. We just started, like, you know, that type of stuff, you know, like that real, what's the word? Transparency.
Yeah.
And at the time they were talking about how that's important, you know, create relatability. People don't, you know, this whole new Gary V era was hitting, right? Like, I mean, I don't know if you probably mentioned Gary V on your show a million times.
I haven't actually. This is a first.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gary V is just like, I mean, I follow him because I just think there's so much stuff he says. I'm like, he's right. Like, and if you look back at all the stuff he's said about social media, he's been right about every single thing he said, right? So, and one of his things was like, people don't give a shit about your brand for no reason. Those days are done. They're investing in personalities. They're investing in people. Like, why am I joining this guy's gym when there's 10 other gyms in the city? Well, this guy's like at his gym, painting his gym, like unloading his equipment. Like, he trains at his gym. You'll see the owner every day. That type of stuff. And so that's how we did it. That's how we marketed our gym. And, you know, I mean, you know, I look at like the big famous corporate gym down the street, you know, they've probably have 6,000 members and they've got 5,000 Instagram followers. Whereas, you know, we've got, you know, under 2,000 members and we have, you know, 17,000 Instagram followers. So you have to create more than, it's not just like, I think a lot of gyms right now, they're just using their Instagram as like, oh, put the sale graphic up. And then the next post you see is proteins, 20% off. And then the next post you see is, you know, come down this weekend and get half price drop-ins. But like, you gotta, like, we're using our Instagram for like build community. And also too, I look at some of the gyms, like I'll look through their stories. They'll have 3 stories posted. One story is like a holiday hours graphic. And the next story is one person who's tagged them. And then I'm like, well, that can't be, you've got 5,000 members. There's got to be way more people tagging your gym than that. And you're just not going through the stories and you're not reposting them. This is free marketing. Free. Your members are marketing your business for you for free and you're not reposting them. You're not showing them the love. And you go through our stories, we'll have like 50 stories up. Every single person, every single female, male, guy bench pressing, squatting, posing in the mirror, showing off their abs. talking about their food, showing their diet, sitting in their car eating, whatever. We'll repost everyone to show the community of the business. And that's not just a gym thing. I think that's just, you know, that's a now thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to back up a little bit because I think part of the story of your business journey is definitely before you got to the point of painting the walls at West Coast Iron. And I don't know how much of that you can share and how, you know, but whatever, just giving some context around how did the opportunity present itself? What were the challenges that you and the other four guys kind of saw going in? Where were the areas that you saw opportunity? Why in 2017 did you say 2017, 2018?
2017, yeah.
Why did you see that opportunity and go, this is going to make sense from a business perspective?
I don't think we got as far as it making sense.
Okay. That's great. Even better.
Yeah, no, this is actually there was not nearly as cerebral as you're thinking. We were all five of us were training at a local gym here that was very convenient for me because it was right across the street from where I was working at Mutant, and it was 5 minutes from my house. So it was like the gym I like training at. And it was kind of hardcore, you know, they played rock and roll and rap, and, you know, there's some bodybuilders there, but it was a bit of a dump. You know, there was a lot of broken equipment. Things weren't getting fixed. It was kind of going downhill. It wasn't that busy, but it was the gym I loved, you know? And I was, you know, still training really hard at that point in time. And suddenly the owner, Frank, he passed away tragically. It was his time to go. And it was a shock to everybody, and the gym closed. So off to the commercial gyms we all went. We all went our own ways. We all went and tried the one down the street. And I was driving to Burnaby to go to a much better commercial gym that just had a lot more equipment. And I didn't really like that drive in traffic. And, you know, there was another semi-hardcore gym 20 minutes away, but it was, you know, it was full of kind of rough characters. And it was just kind of like, and every once in a while I'd run into the guys, these five guys. I'd run into, well, I didn't know all five of them, but I'd run into a few of them, and they'd be like, man, you know, and we had kind of talked about buying the gym off Frank at one point. There was like a little chatter about that. So then when he had passed away, we started talking like, hey, like if we rent that, I think we can lease that space and start a new gym. And because there was five of us, it kind of minimized the financial requirement load on each of us. And we started that gym. I want to say how little money we put into it, because it was like, you couldn't start nothing for that now. But we actually only put in 50 grand each. So with 250 grand, we started that gym, which is like nowadays, that's like, you know, 8 years later, that's nothing. But that was enough to lease the building, paint it, order a bunch of used but good equipment, like because I know my equipment really well, and the other guys too. Like we were like, hey, we really need a couple. We need a good leg press. We need a better hack squat. We need this and this and this. We should get this and this. And we need another 8 stack. You know, that sort of thing. So I had a connection with a used equipment business in LA. So I had a truck filled with stuff, some treadmills, bikes, an 8 stack, some leg pieces, whatever. And they shipped that up and got it for a really great price. A friend of mine gave me like cost on all the equipment. And we were able to kind of like get the gym passable equipment wise.
Right.
And, you know, the one guy had a logo and a bunch of clothing made, and the other guy dealt with the lease and getting the business registered and starting a company for us. And the other guy made a pro shop appear out of nowhere. And we just did our thing, and we opened the gym. And we kind of just went like this. And the first day we signed up 350 people on opening day. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, our rent is covered.
Right.
Like, you know, we're a long ways from being in the profit, but now we're like, we got 350 members. Like, we could turn that into 700 in 4 or 5, 6 months. And, just grew from there. And we just kind of crossed our fingers and believed that there were enough people that wanted a real gym that wasn't a corporate gym. It wasn't going to harp at them for every little thing. And we're going to turn the music up and we're going to have some fun and, that sort of thing. And we just believed in the project and just went from there.
So I hear two different kinds of stories on this podcast a lot from people who get into like at this stage in your journey where we're at. And there's the people who have analyzed and done the homework and gone out to market and for 2 years written business plans and tried to poke holes in business plans and talk to bankers and talk to other consultants. And then there's probably an equal split, 50-50, the other side that, ran into somebody, they said, you want to start a business? They're like, yep. And the next day they're doing something, right? Kind of more along the lines of your story. And at this point, I always want to know, because I'm just fascinated by it. What was do you remember your kind of emotional state? Were you scared? Did you look at that? Like, were you able to say that 50 grand, if it's gone, it's gone? Were you thinking like, what if this doesn't work? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? What was kind of your thought process at that point?
I've thought about that. I think so. As far as the 50 grand, it was all the cash I had at the time on hand. Like, I didn't pull any money out of RSPs or anything like that, but I had saved 50 grand. And I was like, but I was at a stage in my life where I knew that my competing was over with. And so my real bodybuilding days were done. So I knew that I had the energy and the drive. And I just believed in myself. I'd never pulled out of a show. I'd never quit anything. Like I've never quit anything. Do you know what I mean? Like I've never started something and then given up on it ever. And I guess I just think like, don't stop to think about that.
Yeah, sure.
Like just do it.
It's not even part of your vocabulary.
Yeah. Like it's going to work. Like we'll just make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just make it work. And like a couple of the other guys moved on. There's 3 owners now, and that's great. Like everyone has different directions and places they want to go with their businesses and stuff. There's 3 of us now. And like, I just always knew that I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm here to make this work. Like I'll make this work. I'll do whatever I have to do for the gym, like we were all putting in a lot of hours. Like I was opening Saturday morning and closing Sunday night. And the other guys were opening, mornings during the week and coming in and covering shifts in the afternoon. And, like we only had a couple of staff at the very beginning, now we have a staff of like 15 people. And, we just built the gym ourselves and we just believed in the project and watched it grow and just, yeah, didn't really, I guess like, I don't want to sound like that guy that like says ridiculous shit, but I don't quit things. I never have. So, I just saw, well, I'll just do this and just make it work. Like there's a way to make this work. There's other gyms like this that are open for 20 years. Why can't we have one? Like, and people would say like, I remember people coming in, like dropping by to see us when we were doing the renos. And I vividly remember several people were like, you're painting it black? Because back then there were no black gyms, right? Like now you look on Instagram, like all these gyms are painted black and all this stuff. But back then, I actually remember telling the guys we should paint it black. And they were open to it. They were like, oh, and I was like, because I had been to a gym that was painted black and the colors of the equipment really popped. And then the posters on the walls really popped. And it was unusual. And so they were totally cool with it, on board fully. And so we painted most of the walls black. And I remember people coming in and going, you can't paint it black. You're not going to have any women in here. It's way too masculine. It's way too hardcore. And then the first thing that happened when we opened was we stole a bunch of these fitness girls from the commercial gym down the road. They all came to our gym. And they were like, oh, it's awesome here. They didn't care that it was painted black. They're just happy they weren't getting bothered by anybody. And there were no creepy guys that were like trying to talk to them all the time. And the other guys were training hard, so they were leaving them alone. And right away, we had this community kind of gel, like right off the bat. We really had the fitness community, like obviously the bodybuilding community really came first, and they like really, really gelled and created a base for us. And then we built the sort of Gen Pop members on top of that. We got our office crowd we got the soccer moms, we got all the trainers in there now with their like more regular people, you'd call them. But we immediately got the support of the real fitness industry. And it was just ignoring all the noise, all the stuff people tell you, like, you can't do that. You can't do that. It's like, what are you talking about? Of course we can do that. We're like, I don't know. We just didn't listen to anybody else.
I want to drill into some of the actual business aspect. Like you mentioned the kind of the growth. I want to talk about kind of that growth piece. The early days, like with five of you, kind of the conversation around ownership, and then you have two people leave. Was that pretty straightforward based on the contract that you had signed? Were there shotgun clauses? How did that work? And then of course I want to tie in COVID, because I try not to do that too often. But with a business like yours, it went from full business to no business. And you and I both had a gym at that exact time, and mine almost bankrupted me. I'm very open about that. I talk about it lots. But I want to get a sense, kind of what that piece was. So I don't know how you want to approach that, like just kind of that growth, that business growth to 15 staff, and kind of the impact of COVID and that business relationship with the partners.
Yeah. I mean, there was just, the partners saying, like, those two guys already had other businesses too. Right. So like one of them moved away, like, so that wasn't, it was just how it went. And one of them was just like, I got too many businesses. I can't be here enough, and didn't think it was fair to us. So he, took his cut and left. And it wasn't like, it didn't like bankrupt the business or anything like that. Everyone was really cool. And I mean, everyone was fair, and I thought it was fair both times, and I had no problem with it, and just kind of moved on. Like, sometimes you got to empty the bank account and, start fresh with, no cash in the bank account. But then 3 months later, you're stacking cash again, and you're back in the black, and you're like, oh, well, we're going to be okay. And you just move on from there. You know what I mean? COVID was, we were a little lucky out here in BC, because we were only closed for 8 weeks, and then the government allowed us to reopen.
Okay.
That first 8 weeks, everybody went through, right?
Yeah.
But then out here, they let gyms open again. And I think that was when we really shone as a team. Like, we really came together. All five of us at that point really came together, because, they announced, like, on this day, gyms can reopen. And we were like, oh, okay. So we just aggressively went like ape shit on making sure that if Fraser Health came in, they would be happy. Right. So we put signs up everywhere, and we even put arrows on the floor. Like, we played that whole silly game that, I mean, at that point in time, though, nobody knew what was going on. Right. It was like 8 weeks after the whole shutdown. It was like everyone was just on this crazy ride of not having any clue of really what was happening. We were all so like, just let's get open. And we thought, okay, we're allowed 50 people at a time. So we're going to have a lineup outside. So we're going to tell our members, hey, you got an hour to train. And I stood at the door while we all took turns, but I was doing a lot of standing at the door like a doorman, which kind of took me back to my old bar days. So I've come full circle.
I love that.
Standing at the door like a doorman with the 2 clickers in my hands. Just like a door guy, clicking the outs, clicking the ins. Like, oh, 2 in. Yeah. Have a good workout, guys. Try to keep it to an hour. So no one's doing cardio, right? Because everyone's running outside for cardio, or doing their cardio in the park during COVID. Right. So everyone's just getting in and lifting weights. Yeah. And we're trying to keep it to 50. But, I'm a nightclub guy. We're all night. So we're pushing it to 70. And we're clicking away, And of course, we realized right away that there's a bit of a song and dance going on. The fire department would come down and give us a little wink. Hey, we're here to check you guys out, make sure you're all right. And we're like, oh, we're good, And we realized pretty soon that None of them gave a shit.
Yeah.
And then we realized that the bylaw people that came by, they weren't even coming in. They were just coming by to talk to me at the front door. Well, everything looks good. And they'd leave. And we're like, oh, I get it. There's like the only people that actually give a shit is if the Fraser Health people. And so we're just like doing our best to not get complaints. And we just did that the whole time. And the crazy thing that I thought was just complete lunacy was that we were the first gym to open. We opened on the day that they allowed gyms to open.
Right.
And then we realized that none of the fitness worlds were even open. There's all these other gyms that weren't open yet because they didn't have a COVID plan. They weren't ready. They were all scared. They were these big corporate monsters.
And that would be part of it, not to cut you off, but some of it would be that they'd have their corporate environment. They'd have teams of lawyers that are saying, here's the risk, here's the liability, don't do it.
Yes.
And you guys,
there was all
like, you know, let's get her done.
Just like a rock band.
Yeah, I love
it. Just throw some fucking tape on the floor. Let's go.
Yeah.
And we just opened. Let's put spray bottles everywhere, give everybody a spray bottle, and just crank the doors wide open. Let's go.
So did you see a migration of people from the other at that time?
Yeah. So we gained about 300 members immediately. So like within 3 weeks of opening again, we were actually making more money than we'd ever made. And all the new members were like, oh my God, this gym is awesome. I can't believe I thought this was just for bodybuilders, but now I'm here and it's like, this is awesome. And it was like, it really got us like going because we were doing good up to that point, but we blew up after COVID because we aggressively opened. And we also got a lot of the people that were more like liberty minded. Is that a good term? Liberty minded? Like we got.
We'll understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, like we got all the people that were like, I don't want to be managed like a child. Just let me do whatever I want. Like I want to work out, you know? And we got that whole crowd came to us, and all the people that were afraid to go anywhere, touch anything, they all stayed at the corporate gyms.
Right.
And we just got like these waves of people that were like, oh, thank God. I just want to work out. I don't even watch the news anymore. You know, like we got that whole crowd and it just, nothing happened. We just stayed open. Nothing happened. We never got any fines. We never got any letters. We never got in trouble. Nothing happened. We just were open the whole time and we just kept doing our thing and did the best we could to make sure that our members were happy with what we were doing, you know, make sure our members were happy. Like we were cleaning a lot and we were keeping the doors wide open, that whole, like, you know, as long as we could, because we got the big giant bay doors that go 21, 22 feet in the air. So it was almost like training outside because we had every door cranked. And we just kept the gym running and did the best we could. And it went really well. And we survived COVID. And I know that a lot of gyms had, you know, gyms in Alberta and Ontario were like closed for like a year. And like, I don't know how any of them survived that. So I feel bad for them. And also people give us credit, too much credit for like surviving COVID, but we were out in BC where gyms were open.
Yeah.
It was different.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, because certainly ours went through, like it was a lot harsher and for a lot longer. And it was, man, it was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a unique time period. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And hey, there was some very stressful moments too. Like, you know, there was definitely some stressful moments that, you know, there was all this talk, like, you know, every once in a while there'd be an outbreak at a commercial gym.
Yeah.
And it'd be in the news. 14 people at, you know, Fitplex or whatever, all got COVID and they think it's linked to one guy doing cardio in the morning. And then I'd think, oh, you know, I wonder if this is going to affect us. And the next day I'd go to the gym and we'd be busier than ever. I'm like, okay, well, I guess the lineup would be longer than ever. Like our members, we had the members that were like, I don't care about the news. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm healthy. Working out is healthy. Being healthy, I eat healthy. I take care of myself. I'm not doing this. And we had a great portion of that.
Yeah. All right. So I'm really, really happy to hear that because I mean, so many of the stories from a business perspective, as we know, like there were obviously some, I am in the real estate world at that time. And Like other than like you said, that kind of 4 to 8 week period, real estate took off. Like that was a crazy time for that industry. But so many shops, small mom and pop businesses that had foot traffic were directly impacted. So I'm really glad that was your experience. So let's talk about some of the business growth. Let's talk about some of the like being able to bring in other people to help support you and like as far as a staffing complement and some of the like, are you talking new strategies? Have you talked new strategies around like you talked about the pro shop, you've got some merch, you've got some of the supplement pieces around there. Has there ever been talk of a second location? Like would that be yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have talked about a second location several times. The thing is though, we've watched a few other gyms that have come up that, maybe try to do, I'm not going to say do what we do because everyone's got their own unique flavor. I don't want to pretend like they're copying us or anything, but try to do the independent gym, new brand type of thing. And we've watched them expand aggressively. And I remember saying to my partners, like there's 3 of us now. I remember saying to my partners, this is too fast. These guys are going to regret this. And then like a year or 2 later, you see the wheels fall off on a bunch of the locations and they're franchising too quickly without background checking their franchisees. And the franchises aren't really doing as good as they hoped. And now they're draining the good location. And you start to see them closing or selling off. And we just sort of said, let's just stick to our guns. We're doing well here. Like we're making money. The gym's growing. The gym's equity is growing. The balance sheet is improving every year. All that stuff that, you look at on the back end, you get your financials at the end of the year and you're like, oh, another year of growth, another year of growth, another year of growth. And our checks, we're taking a check. We didn't take a check for 4 years. It was the 4-year anniversary was when we cut ourselves our first dividend check. And that check has gotten bigger, a little bit bigger every year. We start cutting like a little bit bigger monthly checks every year and taking a little bit, we can afford to take a little bit more. And so, I mean, as far as us, like the gym's doing great and we're doing great. And so we've watched these other gyms try to expand and maybe the new location kind of sucks the life out of the one that was killing it. And we thought, man, we don't want that to be us. We don't want to rush anything. Like we don't want to franchise to the wrong person. We don't want to overreach. And then also too, like our gym is kind of like lightning in a bottle in a way, because it's really the owners. Like, now it's become the culture and the members and the staff, but it started with owners. We were all on our Instagrams, like,
right.
This is, getting the gym going. And so if we're going to open another location, we have to recognize like we're not going to be there. So it would have to be the right formula, the right person running it, the right person joining the team sort of thing to have like that same sort of flavor to make it like to help start that community up. There's definitely some stuff on the horizon that is possible for us. We've spoken to some great people and we're keeping our minds open that way. But I've also talked to guys, like I've got some friends that have owned a lot of gyms. Like I talked to one guy that's had 30 different gyms. And I said, any advice after owning like 30 gyms? And he's like, if I would have just kept the first 2, I probably would have made the same amount of money and I'd probably live 10 years longer. Yep. He's like, I swear, he told me, I swear to God, 15 of them just drained life out of me and didn't really add to my bottom line at the end of the day. Like this aggressive expansion isn't always profitable for you. It might, maybe one day you can sell the brand for a big whack of money or something like that. But I mean, I know some guys dream of, that $50 million franchise sell-off check. And then there's other guys that are like, I got $2 million in the bank and my house is paid for and I'm fishing.
Yeah.
And I don't I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I sort of wonder which one of those guys I am. Like, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. And
I don't always see more happiness in the like, hey, we need 20 locations. I want like blah blah, you know. I don't know if that's necessarily what we need to do. I mean, I'd love to open another one and have it do really well and get another check and expand the brand and have spread the brand and have people love the gym. That would be amazing. But, you know, I also have other income streams as well, you know, so I mean, I'm not just like driven like to expand the brand like crazy. Does that make sense? I
all
don't
of it
know.
makes sense. And good for you for recognizing that. It's definitely a theme that I hear on this podcast and when I talk to other business owners and when I read business books, and even the big successful companies at times grew for growth's sake, right? They're just expanding for expansion's sake. And that's my origin story in business. It was just, if I can justify hiring more people, then that means my business is growing. It doesn't mean that those people are adding value and actually providing more income and that the bottom line is getting better. It's just growth for growth's sake. And I think you're recognizing that in all of those other stories that you referenced, that there is ambition in growth. And I think that's okay, but it has to be calculated. There has to be a rationale behind it in order to make it worthwhile. And good for you for recognizing that and just seeing when the opportunity comes up and when it makes the most sense. You'll know that, but you're not doing it
Yeah.
just for the sake of now we need another location, right? Because that is where
Yeah.
people get into trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. That sort of thing. And, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm doing well. Like it comes down to, I've had people ask me like, what's your happiness level? And like my happiness level right now is 10 out of 10.
Off the charts.
Off the charts. Like I love my life. I love where I live. I love my wife. I love my dogs. I love my gym. I love my
Yeah.
hobbies. Look at this wall of guitars I
Yeah.
got. I play these all the
Yeah.
time. You know, like I come in here, throw my headphones on, jam out.
Love it.
Like I'm happy as shit. I eat, you know, high quality butcher beef for dinner every night. I my vehicle's paid for.
Yeah.
I, you know, like I get to travel with Mutant all the time. You know, we just took a holiday in Mexico. Like I'm happy as shit. And so I see some guys that have 10 times, 20 times as much wealth as I
Yeah.
do.
And 100
And
times more stress.
they're just so driven to make more money all the time. And they're just like, and I'm just like, dude, do you know how good you have it? Like, take a breather. Like, I'm not trying to say like, don't work hard. Obviously, I've worked my ass off to get where I am, but like, how much do you need? Like, there has to be like, you have to have a conversation with yourself. Like, are you willing to sacrifice some of your happiness for this or that? And I love working hard. I love a good project.
You've been doing that your
and,
whole life.
You know, but I just like also too, like I also take time to go like, this is awesome. Like, this is fantastic. You know, not saying rest on your laurels or anything like that, but I just say some people just, they think money is going to fix their happiness issue is I guess my point. And I don't think it ever really does, you know? So money's great when you're already happy too, right? When you're already happy, more money is
Yeah.
like awesome. So I don't know.
No, I love all of that. And I think that, like, again, just tying it back to kind of where you're at in that business growth mindset, that will be your litmus test, right? Like that will constantly be your measure of the decisions that you make going forward. And I think that at this point, with the success that you have, the kind of current environment, your happiness level of 10 out of 10, knowing that a decision is moving you away from that, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way, but a decision is
Right.
moving you away from that. And so then that becomes your barometer, right? And I think that is an extremely important comment and lesson and piece of the conversation for other people that are talking about growth in their business or starting a business. It's where you're at today and what are you pursuing it for?
Yeah. And I've also like examined, like I've been online shopping for other businesses too. Like there's other, like when people say like, oh, you must want to expand the brand. I'm like, well, maybe the direction I want to go in is just owning a laundromat.
Yeah.
And putting a good manager in there and having it generate cash flow. Right? Like we don't necessarily have to have fucking 10 locations of this gym. Like maybe the direction is just buying a commercial property with some partners and having some cash flow off that, or building equity in it. It's not even cash flow because, sometimes your rent is just the mortgage and that's how it works out. And there's not necessarily cash flow, but you're building equity for the future. Like I love that sort of stuff. And I've looked at all that kind of stuff. I actually talked with some guys a couple times about buying a commercial building, getting in there for, a third of the building and doing that type of thing, which I would love to do. Those investment groups that get together and buy stuff, all about that stuff. I'd love to get in on that stuff. I'm interested in that type of stuff. I'm interested in investing. I invest a great portion of the money I make every month goes straight into investments. I'm at a point where I try to live off a certain amount of my income and invest the rest. And, I'm very plan for the future type of guy. And, I've done all the calculations on where I'll be by the time I'm 55 and all that sort of stuff. It's not just about the gym. I also still train people. Like I still have like 40 clients right now that I'm helping with online training. So I've still got a good income stream there, and I'm still sponsored by Mutant. So I've still got income stream there. So I still have other businesses, so I don't have to just focus on like opening another location and stuff. There's all sorts of other things I would like to do. So I'm just trying to keep my mind open and my options open, and I like to grow. A bodybuilder mentality. I want something to grow. Something's got to grow. If my arms can't grow anymore, I want to try to at least grow my portfolio or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that's another thing. Like my income doesn't necessarily have to go up, but I want my investments to go up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty happy with my income, but if I can get my portfolio to expand somehow and get more equity for the future, that's like awesome.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Really
try
good,
to think like that.
Really good mindset. And I love that as kind of the closing thought, like kind of that happiness quotient as kind of part of the motivation and part of the driver. And then just balancing what your needs are in general versus what you want to do for the planning for the future. And
okay. Thanks a lot, Trevor.
It.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Business is Fucking Hard. Please remember that this show is meant to create community and share ideas in the business world. For advice specific to your business, talk to an expert in your industry. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on Instagram and LinkedIn and invite others to do the same. This episode was hosted by me, Trevor Coote, and produced and edited by Alex Harris. Thanks for tuning in, and talk to you next time.